The sun hung low over the cracked red stone of Broken Mesa, pressing the air down like an invisible hand. I'd been staking fence posts alone since dawn, each hammer blow echoing into the dry cedar wood like the heartbeat of a stubborn fool who refused to die. This land was mine, a barren stretch of frontier where humans and orcs avoided each other's gaze even years after the peace treaty. I came here to disappear. My name is Rowan Hale, 26 years old. I used to be a scout for the Border Legions, the kind hired to read tracks, gauge the wind, find water, and guess which horizon hid death. But that was before the night at Red Cliff Hollow. The night fire and screams woke me for years afterward. I don't talk about it. Not about the tents igniting, not about the smell of burning hair on the wind. So I quit scouting and tried for a normal life. I bent to check the last knot in the rope, lifting my water flask halfway to my lips when I froze. On the eastern ridge, a figure stood still, not a traveler passing through, but someone who'd been watching for a while. The hairs on my neck stood up. Old instincts, ones I thought I'd buried with the names, stirred like wolves scenting blood. I set the flask down quietly. My hand slid to the dagger at my belt. I watched, waited, breathed slow. The figure started down the slope, slow, staggering, like each step might be the last. As she reached the bottom, I saw her clearly. A female orc. She wasn't a warrior in her prime. Her leather tunic was torn at the side and shoulder, revealing bruises like maps of violence. Green skin dusted red, black hair matted with dust, feathers, and leather cords, sweat stuck to her cheeks. Her wrists bore raw marks, fresh rope burns, oozing red. She was surviving on will, not strength. I glanced back at the ridge, scanning for pursuers, horse dust, movement, glint of metal. Nothing. She was alone. She stopped 8 paces from my fence, clutching a post to stay upright. Her breaths were ragged, thin, but her eyes didn't waver. Dark, fierce, locking pain behind stubborn pride. Then she spoke. Her voice rasped with thirst, but cut clear like a blade. "Do you remember me, Pathfinder?" The words stabbed into something I thought dead. I studied her face, searching for the child in the bruises and dust, and when her eyes met mine, memory surged. A tiny body under collapsing beams, sobs caught in her throat, small hands clutching my collar and the burn in my lungs as I ran. I swallowed dry. I've seen you, I said, my voice gravel. Years ago, near Red Cliff. Her shoulders trembled from holding herself up. She swallowed, her throat working against the dust. "I'm the one you carried from the flames," she whispered. "My name is Kara, of the Ash Tusk clan." Ice dropped into my gut. Kara wasn't a child anymore. She was a woman. Gaunt from hunger and flight, but with the unyielding orc stance of someone who wouldn't bow even on the edge of collapse. "Why are you here?" I asked. Her jaw clenched. A flash of shame crossed her eyes, crushed by anger. "My clan shattered after that night. Some said I brought the curse. Some said I should have died in the fire." She breathed hard. "They sold me to Varric Doss, a human slaver. He meant to trade me for gold at the northern mines. I cut the ropes with a sharp stone. He hunts runaways. For years, I've been searching for you." Her voice cracked. "I don't want to die alone in the dust." Her knees buckled. I lunged forward in time, catching her crumbling form. She gripped my shirt like it was the last stake in a sandstorm. "I told myself," she murmured, "if I made it here, you wouldn't turn me away." I lifted her. She was lighter than I expected, light enough to make me angry at the world. "I won't leave you out here," I said. She leaned her head against my chest, breaths hot and hurried. I carried her into my rough wooden cabin, and right at the threshold, as I laid her on the only bed, she looked at me with what resolve she had left. "I came to marry you," Kara said, hoarse, "because you're the only one who chose to save me when everyone ran. I choose you because I remember that kindness." I stood frozen, as if the whole of Broken Mesa had shifted the wind. I brought water to Kara in small sips. She took them, her hands trembling around the tin cup. I knelt by the bed, checking her wounds like an old habit from my scouting days. Raw wrists from the ropes, bruises blooming purple across her ribs, a long gash on her thigh scabbed over but filthy with red dust. "How many are chasing you?" I asked. "4, she replied. "At least 4. Varric leads them. He likes the hunt, not to catch." but to see the prey afraid. Heat rose in my jaw. I cleaned the gash, bandaged it with clean cloth, and pulled the thick blanket over her shoulders. Kara watched me the whole time, as if waiting to see how I'd decide her fate in the human way. Lay down laws, ask for a price, tally the gain. "You'll fight for me," she said, not a question, but a truth she was holding on to. "I won't let anyone touch you," I answered. She closed her eyes for a second as if those words lightened her, then opened them, her gaze still sharp. "You saved me, Rowan," she said. "But why do you live alone here?" I exhaled slow. I went to the narrow window, staring out at the empty land where wind dragged dust in low streaks. I heard the past in the silence, cracking wood, neighing horses, orders barked, children crying. I'd run from it for 5 years, but it followed me here. "I remember," I said. Kara tried to sit up, but her ribs made her face go pale under the green skin. I steadied her back. "You saved me, Rowan Hale," she said. "That night, you pulled me from the flames. But why did you come to Redcliffe in the first place?" I didn't answer right away. I sat on the edge of the table, facing her. "The Border Legions hired me to find an orc war camp. I got a tip from a human go-between. Stolen weapons, orcs planning a raid on the trade routes. I led them to the Hollow." Her eyes didn't blink. "But it wasn't a war camp," I continued. It was families, elders, women, children in tents." My voice dried up. "By the time I realized, it was too late. Orders were given, fire arrows flew, and I got you out. I pulled a few more, but too many died." Kara recoiled like I'd struck her, but she didn't yell. She whispered, "I remember the fire. The screams," I added, my throat tight. "I wanted to die after that, every day." She didn't interrupt. "I just didn't do it," I went on, "because I knew at least I'd dragged one child out of the flames. If you died, then everything I did that night was just sin." Her eyes glistened, but no tears fell. Orcs don't cry easy in front of strangers. "So I'm the reason you're still alive?" "Maybe," I said. "And now, you're here again." Kara looked down at her wrists, the red marks still angry. "My clan didn't want me after Redcliffe. They said I carried the curse of that night. Sold me to Varric Doss like I was livestock. He chains runaways, breaks them for the mines. I sharpened a stone on my bonds for days, cut free in the dark. But he doesn't forget. He hunts." She swallowed, her throat working hard. "For years, I wandered the borders, hearing whispers of a human scout who vanished after Redcliffe. I tracked you here." I leaned forward. "Why me? Why not find another orc clan?" She met my eyes, unflinching in that orc way. "Clans don't take cursed ones. Humans see me as a monster. I have no place left." She straightened as much as her wounds allowed. "In Ash Tusk law, a life saved is a debt I owe you, and I want to pay it with a vow." I heard the depth under Mary. Not just romance, but the framework of survival for someone ripped from every home. She was offering me a rope. If I cut it, she'd fall back into the abyss. "You don't need to repay by binding yourself to me," I said. "I'm not asking for pity," Kara replied, her voice hardening. "I'm asking for the right to stay and the right to stand with you. If you refuse, I'll rest here tonight because I can't walk, but tomorrow I'll leave to die somewhere so I don't bring ruin on you." I stared at her long, not weighing benefits because I understood being pushed to the edge of the world, left with one bad choice and a worse one. "You stay," I said, "tonight, tomorrow too, until I say otherwise." A shudder escaped her chest, half relief, half fear. "Varric will find out," she said. "Then I'll prepare," I replied. Night fell fast on Broken Mesa. Kara slept fitfully, murmuring old orc words I didn't know. I sat against the wall, my crossbow on my lap, listening to the wind and waiting. And near dawn, when the sky was just gray, I saw something that didn't belong, a thin wisp of smoke to the west. Controlled, not a wildfire. I turned back to Kara. She was awake, staring right at me as if she felt it too. "They're here," she said softly. I aimed my breath steady, holding back the flood of words that had been dammed up for years. Kara deserved the truth, raw and unpolished like the red dust that clung to everything here in Broken Mesa. She lay there on my bed, her green skin pale under the bruises, eyes fixed on me like I was the last anchor in a storm. "That night at Redcliffe," I started, my voice low. "I was the one who led them there." Her expression didn't change, but I saw the flicker in her eyes, a shadow crossing amber. "The Legions paid me well for scouting," I continued. "They said there was an orc war camp hoarding stolen weapons, planning raids on our trade caravans. I trusted the tip. It came from a human informant, reliable, or so I thought. I tracked the signs, fresh trails, smoke signals in the distance, led the squad right to the hollow under the cover of dusk." I paused, the memory hitting like a gut punch. The air that night had been thick with pine and river mist, the kind that muffled sounds until it was too late. We crept in close. I signaled the captain, targets ahead, but as we got nearer, I heard the voices. Not war chants, laughter, children playing, elders telling stories around the fires. Kara's fingers tightened on the blanket, knuckles whitening against her green skin. "It wasn't a war camp," I said, the words tasting like ash. "It was homes, tents filled with families. But the order came down anyway. Light the arrows, burn them out. They said it was preemptive, that orcs were always a threat. I tried to stop it, yelled at the captain, but the flames were already flying." I rubbed my hands together, feeling the old calluses from gripping reins that night. Chaos erupted, screams everywhere. I ran into the thick of it, pulling whoever I could from the collapsing tents. You were under a beam, tiny and coughing, your little hands grabbing at my shirt like I was salvation. I carried you out, Kara. Got a few others too, an old woman, a boy no older than 10. But the fire, it took the rest. Your clan, gone in smoke and screams. She closed her eyes briefly, as if reliving the heat on her skin. When she opened them, they were hard, not with blame toward me, but something deeper. "Who gave the tip?" she asked, her voice steady despite the pain. I met her gaze. Varric Doss. The name hung between us like a blade. Kara's breath hitched, her bruised ribs protesting. "The same one?" "I didn't know then," I said quickly. "He was just a name on a message, a go-between with connections. After Redcliffe, I dug around, asked questions in border towns, pieced together rumors. Turns out there's gold ore under that hollow, rich veins, the kind that could make a man wealthy for generations. But the land was protected by the treaty. No mining on orc territories without consent. Varric needed a reason to void it. Make your people look like aggressors. A massacre would do that. Paint the orcs as threats, justify seizing the ground." Kara's jaw tightened, tusks pressing into her lower lip. "He killed my father," she whispered. "Slit his throat in the chaos. Made sure the elders died first so no one could rally. And now he hunts me, to silence the last witness who remembers his face in the flames." Rage boiled in my chest, hot and unfamiliar after years of numbness. Varric wasn't just a slaver. He was the architect of my guilt, the man who turned my skills into a weapon for his greed. "He won't touch you," I said, the words a promise I hadn't planned. She nodded, but her eyes held a storm. "Teach me to fight with your weapons." I stood crossing to the wooden chest under the floorboards. Lifting the lid, I pulled out my old gear, a heavy crossbow with iron sights, bolts tipped in steel, coils of rope, and 2 vials of flammable oil. Remnants from my scouting days, kept for beasts or bandits, not a full hunting party. But we had no choice. "This is the crossbow," I said, handing it to her. "Load it like this. Pull the string back until it locks." I demonstrated, the mechanism clicking smoothly. Aim, steady, exhale, squeeze the trigger gently, don't jerk. Kara took it, testing the weight in her hands. Despite her wounds, she had the instinct, years of orc training with bows or axes showing in how she sighted down the barrel. I corrected her grip slightly. "Keep your elbow in. Breathe out, hold, fire." She practiced dry firing a few times, the click echoing in the cabin. "I know how to stab," she said, a faint grim smile crossing her lips. But her eyes were serious, learning fast in a way that unsettled me, like violence was a language the world had forced her to master. As the afternoon dragged on, the distant hoofbeats grew clearer, echoing off the stones like a warning drum. I peered through the door crack, 4 riders cresting the ridge, halting to survey my cabin like it was prey. Kara loaded a bolt, her movements precise now. "He's there," she said, voice flat. "We don't fight them on open ground," I replied. We pull them into terrain we control. We waited until night swallowed the mesa whole, the moon a sliver like a dull knife. Then we slipped out like shadows, Kara at my side despite her pain, her dagger tucked into her boot. The wind howled, covering our steps as we circled west toward their camp. The fire was banked low, embers glowing like eyes. 4 men sat scattered around it, crossbows within reach, horses tethered behind scrub brush. A large leather sack bulged among their gear, not food. I caught the faint scent of oil and black powder, the kind miners used to blast rock. Kara tensed beside me, her breath shallow. Varric sat apart, his scarred face lit by the glow, flipping a silver coin idly. He didn't need to stand to command, his presence did it for him. We watched long enough to confirm whispers about fire, about waiting for sleep, about taking Kara alive to break her properly. My blood ran cold. We lure him into a trap, I whispered to Kara as we retreated. The northern clefts. The rocks are loose there. One wrong move and it all comes down. She nodded, eyes fierce in the dark. We end this. Back at the cabin, we planned in hushed tones, the weight of the night pressing in. For the first time in years, I wasn't running from the past. I was facing it head on, with her at my side. We moved north across Broken Mesa under the cover of fading stars, the rocks jagged and unforgiving like teeth rising from the earth. Kara kept pace despite her wounds, her breaths shallow but determined, dagger gripped white-knuckled in her hand. Tarek led the way, his orc frame hunched low, bandaged shoulders seeping fresh blood with every step. He'd betrayed her once, led Varric right to us. But now he stumbled forward like a man chasing redemption. Or maybe just escape from his own shame. The northern clefts were a natural trap, sheer walls of fractured stone forming a narrow corridor, wind howling through like a beast in pain. Below the main path lay a deep fissure, dark and bottomless, where loose boulders balanced precariously on the edges. One wrong shift and the whole side could come crashing down. I'd scouted places like this before, deadly for the unwary, perfect for turning the hunt on the hunters. "Stay low," I whispered as we positioned ourselves. I took the right flank, belly flat against a ledge, crossbow loaded and sighted on the entrance. Kara crouched opposite, behind a boulder, her eyes scanning the shadows like a predator. Tarek hid farther back, his role clear. Make noise to draw them in, then bolt if things went south. "Don't rush out," I told her. "Wait for my signal, the first bolt." She nodded, tusks glinting faintly in the pre-dawn gray. "We end him here." We didn't wait long. Hoofbeats clattered on stone, echoing like thunder in the confined space. Then voices, low, mocking, drifted in on the wind. "Rowan Hale," Varric called, his tone lazy but carrying like a whip crack. "I know you're listening." He stepped into the corridor. No horse now, just 2 lackeys flanking him with crossbows ready. Varric's scarred face caught the dim light, his silver coin flipping idly between fingers. He moved like he owned the mesa, eyes sweeping the walls as if reading a map only he could see. "I've come for my property," he said, voice echoing off the stone. "That orc bitch. And if you play nice, I'll let you live to regret your meddling." I stayed silent, heart pounding steady. "Let him come deeper." Varric paused, sniffing the air like a hound. "You're still the same scout who led us to glory at Redcliffe, guiding fools to fire, then playing hero. Pathetic." The words twisted in my gut, but I held. He took another step, boots crunching gravel. "Tarek!" Varric barked suddenly. "Come out, you worthless greenhide!" Tarek emerged from the shadows, standing in the narrowest part of the path, blocking the way back. His face was ashen, hands empty but fists clenched. I led you here," he stammered, voice cracking. "But not for her. Not anymore." Varric laughed, a short, cold bark. "Fool. You think betrayal twice makes you clean? You sold her out for your own skin, now you'll die for it." One lackey charged Tarek, blade drawn high. I squeezed the trigger. The bolt whistled true, slamming into the man's shoulder and hurling him sideways. He staggered, foot catching the edge of a loose slab. The rock gave way with a groan, pebbles raining first, then boulders tumbling. He screamed as he plummeted into the fissure, the sound cut short by a wet thud far below. The second lackey whirled toward my position, crossbow rising. Kara exploded from her cover like a shadow given form, not with brute force, but precision. She swept his legs in a low arc, dagger flashing to his throat as he hit the ground. He froze, eyes wide in terror. Only Varric left. He didn't panic. His coin stopped flipping, tucked away as he eyed Kara like a prize reclaimed. "Little Redcliff's survivor," he drawled. "I've paid dearly to keep that tale mine. You were supposed to burn with the rest, make the orcs look like the monsters they are. Gold under that dirt, you know? Rich enough to buy empires." Kara stepped into the open, standing tall despite the pain ripping through her side. "You burned my home," she said, voice steel. "Sold me like meat. Hunted me like game." Varric shrugged. "The world runs on profit, girl." I rose slowly, crossbow trained on his chest. "And it runs on witnesses, too," I said. I stayed quiet out of guilt. "But tonight, you don't walk out with your story." Varric glanced down at the thin ledge under his boots, realization dawning. He backed a step, too late. Kara advanced, not slashing, not charging. She placed her palm flat on his chest and shoved. All those years of flight and fury in one push. Stone cracked like thunder. Varric windmilled, fingers scrabbling at the edge, his eyes locked on hers, finally showing fear. "Kara, No," she said, bending close, voice a whisper that cut deeper than any blade. "You won't." She pried his fingers loose, one by one. He fell, a scream tearing from his throat, swallowed by the depths. Rocks followed, sealing the fissure in a rumble of dust and finality. Silence crashed in. I lowered the crossbow, breaths coming ragged. Tarek slumped against the wall, but as I turned, I saw the blood. Varric's last lackey had fired wild in his panic, bolt buried in Tarek's chest. He gasped, eyes glazing. Kara knelt beside him. "Why?" she whispered. Tarek coughed red. Chuoch loy, for the clan. I failed." His hand went limp. Kara closed his eyes, a quiet orc prayer on her lips. I touched her shoulder. "It's over." She stood, wincing, blood trickling from a fresh graze on her arm. "Not without cost." We were battered, her ribs screaming, my hands raw from the crossbow string. "But free!" The dawn broke red over the mesa, painting the stones like blood won and spilled. We limped back to the cabin as dawn bled red over broken mesa, the stones glowing like fresh wounds under the rising sun. Kara leaned on my shoulder. Her breaths labored from the graze on her arm and the fire in her ribs, but she refused to let me carry her. Tarek's body was slung over my back, heavy and still warm, a grim reminder that not all debts get paid in life. The wind howled through the clefts behind us, burying Varric's fall under layers of dust and rock. No one would find him soon, if ever. The mesa swallowed its dead without ceremony. I laid Tarek down outside the fence, away from the house. Kara knelt beside him, her fingers tracing the old clan tattoos on his arms, faded marks of ash tusk, the same as hers. "He was my cousin," she murmured, voice thick. "Survived Redcliffe like me. But the fire broke him differently. Turned him coward." I nodded, grabbing a shovel from the shed. The ground was hard, baked by sun and wind, but I dug anyway, sweat mixing with blood from scrapes on my hands. Kara helped as she could, pushing dirt aside with her good arm. We buried him shallow, under a cairn of red stones, no words spoken beyond a quiet orc chant. She whispered, something about spirits returning to the ash. "He chose right in the end," I said, wiping my brow. "That counts." Kara stood, dusting her hands. "In orc ways, yes, but the cost, always the cost." We went inside, the cabin feeling smaller now, heavier with what we'd done. I bandaged her arm properly, the cloth turning pink as it soaked up the blood. She watched me, eyes soft in a way I hadn't seen before. Not the fierce survivor, but something vulnerable, like the child I'd carried from the flames. "It's over," I repeated, more to convince myself. She shook her head slowly. "Not yet. Varric's death leaves threads. His men might talk. The mines, they'll wonder where he went." I sat back, the weight of it settling. She was right. Varric wasn't just a slaver. He was connected, border lords, mine owners, maybe even Legion officers who profited from his schemes. If we stayed silent, his rot would spread. "We report it," I said finally. "To the treaty enforcers. There's an outpost 2 days' ride east. I'll tell them about Redcliffe, the gold, everything. You're the witness. They'll have to listen." Kara's eyes widened. They'll brand you traitor, a human turning on his own. Maybe, I admitted, but I've carried that night too long. If it costs me this land, so be it. She reached out, her hand covering mine, rough, calloused from years of survival, but warm. Then I go with you. My word is Orc survivor. They can't ignore that. We rested that day, her sleeping fitfully while I kept watch. By evening, the pain in her eyes had dulled, replaced by a quiet resolve. As the sun dipped low, painting the mesa gold, she sat up, pulling the blanket around her like a cloak. I meant what I said before, she whispered. I came to marry you. I turned from the window, heart thudding. Kara, you don't owe me a life for saving yours. That's not how it works. She shook her head, tusks catching the fading light. It's not debt anymore. That night in Redcliffe, you chose me when the world burned. Today you stood with me against the man who started it. I see you, Rowan, not as savior, but as equal. Strong in ways orcs respect, quiet, enduring, kind when it costs everything. I swallowed, the words stirring something I'd buried deep, the loneliness of these years, the guilt that had hollowed me. And if I say yes? What then? She smiled faintly, the first real one I'd seen, softening the scars on her face. In ash-tusk ways, we swear under open sky. Blood to blood, vow to vow. Not chains, but choice. We build together. Survive together. I thought of the empty mesa, the fence I'd staked alone, the nights staring at stars, wondering why I bothered. With her it could be different. Purpose. Not redemption, but something new. Yes, I said simply. I choose you too. We rode out at dawn. 2 days later, her wounds bound tight, my crossbow slung across my back. The outpost was a squat fort of stone and timber guarded by mixed patrols, humans and orcs enforcing the fragile peace. We told our story to a grizzled enforcer, an orc with one eye and a human scribe taking notes. Kara spoke first, her voice steady as she recounted Redcliffe, Varric's blade on her father's throat, the years of chains. I filled in the rest, the false tip, the gold motive, our trap in the clefts. They listened, faces hardening. By midday, riders were dispatched to the mines, warrants issued. Word came back weeks later. Varric's operations shut down, borders redrawn to honor the treaty. No gold for the greedy. Redcliffe's land returned to orc remnants, a small victory in a scarred world. We returned to the cabin, but it wasn't the same. Kara healed slow, her strength returning in the work, mending the fence with me, planting hardy roots in the dry soil, teaching me orc knots that held against any wind. I showed her human ways, how to read tracks not just for danger but for water sources, how to brew poultices from mesa herbs. Our life built layer by layer. Mornings we'd rise with the sun, her braiding her hair with feathers while I stoked the fire. She taught me orc songs, low rumbling tunes about ancestors and endurance. I shared stories of the stars, pointing out constellations that guided scouts home. Evenings we'd sit outside, her head on my shoulder, watching dust devils dance across the plain. One night, under a full moon, we made the vow. She cut her palm with her dagger. I did the same. Blood mingled on a flat stone, oaths spoken in both tongues. I bind to you in choice, in strength, in life. No witnesses but the wind and stars. It wasn't grand, but it was ours. The mesa changed with us. Word of Varric's fall spread. Travelers came. Orc wanderers seeking refuge. Human outcasts tired of borders. We shared what we had, a meal, a story, a patch of land to camp. Slowly a small settlement grew around our cabin. Tents at first, then sturdy homes of stone and wood. Humans and orcs side by side, trading skills, burying old grudges. Kara thrived in it, her laugh echoing as she taught orc children to track, or bartered with human merchants for seeds. I found purpose too, scouting safe paths, mediating disputes, building something lasting instead of running. Years blurred. Our first child came, a boy with green-tinged skin and my eyes strong like his mother, curious like me. We named him Tarek, honoring the one who fell choosing right. Watching him play in the dust, chasing lizards with a stick, I felt the weight of Redcliffe lift, not gone, but shared. One morning, we stood on the ridge where she'd first appeared, the sun rising gold over our growing home. Kara slipped her hand into mine, calluses fitting like puzzle pieces. "It's done," she said softly. I nodded, pulling her close. "And it begins." The wind carried our words away over a mesa no longer broken but mending, one choice at a time.